Hi everyone, and let's talk today about my favorite dog walking, dog training gear. And today specifically, we're going to talk about leashes. I work with dogs professionally. I walk, train, board dogs. So I had years of experience trying different brands, different models, different setups, and I want to share my favorite ones today. This is going to be serious. We're going to talk about leashes today, and in the next episodes, we're going to talk about harnesses and other walking and training gear. So if it's something that might be interesting for you, join us. And of course, a disclaimer, this video is not for me to influence you to go and buy everything. That's not the goal of the video. The goal of the video is to share what leashes I use, why I use particular models, what setups are good for different situations, how to find a high quality, durable, a leash with good construction that is very thought through and stuff like that. The brands I'm going to mention are available here in North America, and I live specifically in San Francisco, so they're related to my current setup and situation. But of course, you don't need to go buy this particular brand if it's not available in your area. Just look on my general advice how to choose a leash for your particular situation so you can find alternatives among other brands. I'm not affiliated with any brands. Nobody asked me to review anything. These are my true recommendations, and most leashes we're going to review today I used for at least a couple of years, most of them even longer. And let's start with my most favorite everyday leash that I had for the last 3 years at least. This is actually the leash that I use with my dog, and I also used it to, I think, walk other dogs. The reason I like this leash, it's very compact and lightweight, so if I need to off-leash my dog, I can easily put this leash in my pocket. It's not bulky, it's not heavy, it's like easy to carry around. Another reason why I like this leash, it's very durable, and the whole construction, starting with the flat part, the nylon part, including the buckles and all the things, is very durable. So this leash gets everyday use already for several years in a row, and nothing happened to it. It doesn't fray, it doesn't rip, it doesn't stretch. You see that the only small part where you see a little bit of fraying, this is actually a dog that tried to chew on it. But otherwise, if not for that part, it doesn't fray. And even with that part that happened probably a year ago, it's actually still holding on. Okay, let me name the model, and then I tell you a little bit more what I like about leash and also what downsides it has. So this is a rough wear flag line leash. They have two options, one with the handle that can be adjusted and another one without adjustable handle. Slightly cheaper, so if you're looking to save money, just get the other one. So they have the same construction, the same type of the leash, the same weight, thickness of the rope and everything. It's just the buckle can be adjusted or not. I actually like the adjustable buckle. First of all, you can make it, the handle bigger or smaller, and it can be very practical. If you make it very large handle, you can actually shorten the leash this way, or you can strap this leash around your waist, and it's going to be hands-free leash. Or you can do crossbody, and then your dog will stay very close to you. I think I use it a lot when I go inside the store with my dog, and I need my dog to be close to me. Another reason why I like this buckle that can close and open, I can actually tater my dog to something. Let's say I'm in a restaurant, I'm just going to tater them to the table. Or let's say I leave my dog outside when I go inside the store, so I can tater them to some pole and stuff like this. Another thing that I like about leash, that it has a small compartment where you can put pooping bags. I personally don't like those dangling and hanging pooping bag holders, because I usually have a training pouch where all the pooping bags are carried, but you still need a pooping bag inside the leash, because in case if you don't have a pouch with you. The only downside to this leash, actually related to this compartment, is that after a couple of years it started ripping, and now it has a hole. I kind of plan to fix it because I think it's easy to fix, and I have a sewing machine, but I'm just too lazy to do it. The reason it ripped, because I think we used to push like a very large pooping rolls in it. Either you have to put like a single pooping bags, or you need to buy smaller pooping bag rolls. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe we just didn't use it very carefully, that's why it ripped. Okay, a little bit of the specs. So rough wear flag line dog leash, the price is around $30. You can always find 20-30% discount around major like holiday sales and stuff. For example, they do around one now. The length of the leash is 6.5 feet or 2 meters. This is actually another thing I like about this leash. It's a little bit, seem to be a little bit longer than the standard 6-foot leash here in America. The width of the leash is something around 0.8 inches or 2 centimeters. I have to say this is not a very thick leash, so it's somewhat on the narrower side of the leash. That's why if you have a dog who is large, who pulls a lot, who tends to bolt, this may be not a leash for you. My own dog with whom I use it on every day is a medium size, doesn't pull often, so it's very good for her. It would be also good for any smaller dog because the leash is lightweight. For larger dogs, I feel like if you have to manipulate the leash a lot to control your dog, this leash may be too narrow, especially if you have a larger hand. It will be not very practical for you. The downside is probably that it's not as easy to clean it. So if you let your dog drag it, if you drop it on the floor, it gets dirty. And even if you try to wash it in a washing machine, I don't feel like it gets cleaned enough. So this is the only downside. But again, I had it for years and you can see that it still looks somewhat presentable. But if you're like more like a clean side person, that may be not the leash you would enjoy, or you have to wash it more often. I don't think this leash has any other downsides because the buckle where you attach to the dog's harness is very sturdy. Again, we had this leash for years. Nothing seems to be falling apart. Like otherwise, the leash is super practical. And in general, I like this particular company, this brand that produces this leashes. They also produce harnesses, and I'm going to talk about their harnesses as well. They seem to do like very durable products. They're not cheap, but again, if you buy a leash and it lasts you, I don't know, I'm sure this leash will last another couple of years. So it will last me 5-6 years. It's absolutely worth the money because you can buy a cheaper leash on sites like Amazon or elsewhere, and it will not last you. And I had this experience when the leash would only last me a year or two because the buckle would start breaking up, or the carabiner would not last as long, or the leash would start fraying and stuff like this. So this one is perfect. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is my favorite every day, but a long leash. So if the previous leash was more on the 2 meters, 6 feet range, like this is something that's called like standard leash here in America. So the next one is my everyday long leash. So here's the differentiation. For me, if I take a dog for a quick potty break, if I go on a like city walk, if I plan to visit some restaurants, stores, or like public places, I opt for a 6-foot leash just to keep my dog close to me. But otherwise, I usually prefer to have at least 10 feet, something around like 2.5-3 meters long, so my dog gets more range of motion. I know many pet parents want the dog to walk by their side, and I understand the appeal. But if we don't have a reason, like let's say we're not in a public place, we're not on a busy street, if there is no reason for your dog to be next to you, don't force your dog to be next to you, because it's not natural for them. It's natural for them to move freely, to go explore, to sniff, to move like in a very zigzaggy motion and stuff like this. If you need situations when you need your dog to be by your side, it's actually also practical to have different equipment. For example, you can use a short leash and let's say put your dog on a collar, train your dog to heel by your side, and then when you give them more freedom, you can clip to the harness and use the longer leash. So eventually even the dog differentiates between different equipments. This is something that people who have service dogs recommends, but of course you have to follow it yourself, because if you're going to start mixing things up, you confuse the dog and nothing will work. But this is another story for another video. Let's go back to the leash. So if I walk my dog in a quiet neighborhood, if I'm in a park, like more open area, I prefer to have at least 10-foot leash. And this is the leash I use on every day with my dog, because it's also, this leash is longer, but it's also lightweight. There's a usually huge downside to longer leashes that are heavier and bulkier, and this one is not. The brand and the model is ollydog rubber grip reflective leash. It has a rubber grip, so it's non-slippery. And also it has a little bit of reflective line, so if you walk your dog at dark times, this is also a perfect leash. And you can see it's quite narrow, but it's very sturdy. It has this type of carabiner where it's easy to unclip your dog, but it's also, there is a safety ring when you can completely close it. So if your dog is a flight risk or reactive or whatever, so you can make sure they're secure. The carabiner has a swivel head, which is kind of nice because it gives you less tangling when, let's say, your dog is dragging the leash. A little bit of the specs. The price of this leash is $30, which is actually an okay price for a longer leash. It's 10 feet long or 3 meters, and the width of the leash is, I think, is similar to the previous one. It's 0.8 inches or 20 millimeters, 2 centimeters. So it's not overly wide leash. And in general, the recommendation is if you have to manipulate the leash a lot, you have to try how it holds in your hand. If you have a larger hand and you feel like it's like too small, so it's almost like too narrow for your hand, maybe it's not the best. And as I said, it's very lightweight, so you can even use it with like smaller dogs, not like a tiny, like extra small dogs, but for smaller dogs. Because usually if you have a small dog and you try to attach a heavy long line to them, they may be a little bit weirded out and they would not like something heavy dragging behind them. Let's say if you always use the 6 feet leashes and you want to slowly upgrade to something longer, I think this will be the good transition for you, and obviously you can keep it for longer, because sometimes when people go from 6 feet leash to like 15 or 20 feet, it's such a big difference, so the leash starts tangling, it becomes like very cumbersome to use, and people hate it. So if you want a transition, this is a good transition. Also, as you can see, it's like relatively compact, so it's not something you can put in a small pocket, but it's something you can put in a large like training pouch, like not a training pouch, like a fanny pack pouch or fanny pack training bag. In terms of downsides, there are not many downsides to this leash. That's why it's my everyday. Few things I would be concerned about. I don't know how heavy duty is this carabiner. It seems to be very like lightweight, which is good for our convenience, but it may be not as strong. So I would probably not use this leash with large, extra large dogs, especially if they're flight risk, if they're pulling and trying to bolt and like lunge at something. I would probably not risk it. I think I had this leash for a little bit more than 1 year and a half, so I haven't had as much use to see how it will last over the years, but so far the stitching is really intact, it doesn't fray. I think I hand washed it a couple of times. I can see a little bit of like fraying, but it's nothing major. In terms of washing it, obviously it has this nylon fabric-y like webbing that may be a little bit harder to wash, but in general, I rinse it and it dries really quick, so no complaints in there. I think I didn't do a very important disclaimer. If you guys see me showing you all this equipment and I have 20 different leashes, and then in later episodes, you're going to see me having 10 different or 20 different harnesses, don't get it as idea that a regular pet owner, pet parent should have so many things. Remember, I'm a pet professional. I also used to walk dogs professionally as a dog walker. So of course I had lots of different equipment. And also I do try out the new equipment. If my clients have this equipment or if they ask me about certain equipment, I always try things so I can recommend or not recommend things for them. Okay, so this is the next leash. It kind of looks similar to the one I just showed you before. This is my go-to leash for larger dogs. It's a similar construction. It has this like nylon webbing, some interweaved rubber grip. So these black parts are the rubber pieces. So it's very grippy. So when you have to manipulate the leash, or if it's a long line, you have to manipulate with it, it's not going to slip. So you don't need to do knots. Like sometimes people do knots on the leashes. I usually don't like it. And actually the name of this leash suggests the same: red line, easy grip dog leash. So this one is a little bit more heavy duty, in my opinion, because it has a large carabiner. It's a stainless steel, so it's supposed to withhold like a very strong pull. I used it with the dogs that are relatively large, and so far I haven't had no issues. I'm using this almost every day, and the construction seems very well. I don't have any fraying or anything. I mean, eventually it will fray, I guess, on the sides, but it's not as bad as like some other leashes. This is a simple one. It just has a like simple handle, and the leash, at least this one, I think is 15 feet. So I guess like 4 meters, 4.5 meters, but actually it comes in different lengths. So that's why I actually like this brand. I like this company. They also have standard leashes. So if, let's say, the leashes I showed you before are not working for you, have a larger dog, look at their leashes, the 6 feet ones. And they offer this long lines in a range from like 10 to 50 feet, which is 3 meters to 15 meters. So if you're training a dog, if you're doing recall, if you walk or hike with your dog on a long line all the time, because not all dogs can be unleashed, but the long line gives them that at least some illusion of off-leash walks. Because if your dog is only all their life on a 6 feet leash, you probably have some behavior issues with this dog. And some of the issues actually stem from the dog being unable to actually express themselves and move freely. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about specs. So the price ranges from $20 to $50. It's actually, their long lines are relatively affordable, at least for American standards, for the quality they offer. As I said, the length is from 10 to 50 feet and the width is 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters. And if you compare these two leashes, I think this one is slightly narrower, but almost the same. This is a great leash for larger dogs. I would not recommend it for smaller dogs. I would not recommend it probably for like small, medium, like frail dogs, like dogs who are very sensitive, because this buckle, not the buckle, this carabiner is relatively heavy. It's like really heavy, so if you attach it to the collar or even if you attach it to the back of the harness, if it's going to be dangled on your dog's neck or back, it is heavy. So they had the option with different carabiners that are more lightweight. For example, if we take my first recommendation, the first leash, they have such a lightweight carabiner. I wish they could have this construction with that carabiner. But it's good because this brand offers such a variety of lengths. They even have different width. Check it out. And also, from what I understand, this company was founded by people who work professionally with dogs, I think with German Shepherds or something like this. So I would assume they tried all their equipment, all their leashes with different types of strong dogs. So it should be tested really well. I have to say, disclaimer, I think on this website they also sell other equipment that I personally don't recommend, prong collars or something like that, or sleep leads. So just keep in mind, I don't recommend this company because I approve their other equipment, but I think this equipment is solid. Okay guys, let's move to the next category, and this is the only, I don't know, type or brand of a leash that I suggest that is basically no name. So it does have a name, but it's not like a particular brand that produces things for dogs. It's just something off Amazon. Usually I don't recommend buying things off Amazon because yes, you may save some money, but 90% out of 100 is going to be very low quality, and long term you're just going to spend more money on replacing things. But this particular brand is my go-to brand for leashes when we train puppies, for leashes that just needs to be more affordable, for new clients who are not sure whether they're ready to get into the long lines business when they don't know what size or what length they want. I always suggest start with the cheap nylon leash and then upgrade to a better brand or something. Since it's not a particular brand, I'm going to leave a link below. The good thing about this particular listing, this particular product, it comes in different sizes. So you can go from, I don't know, I think 10 feet to 100 feet, from 3 to 15 meters, almost like that. But this is a little bit too long, but who knows, maybe you need that much. The price range, you can't beat it. It's below $10, which is extremely cheap for America. I don't know, maybe you guys have cheaper products, but here everything dog related is $20, $30, $50, $70. It's crazy. The ones I usually buy for puppy training and smaller dogs is 15 feet. And then I have the ones for like slightly larger dogs. I sometimes get 20 feet. Again, if you're new, get smaller for now, because when you have 20 feet, it's just a lot of rope in your hands and it's going to be tangling all the time unless you know how to handle it properly. Also, I think they have two sizes. One is a 3/4 of an inch, like this narrow one, and then they have a slightly wider one. I'm not sure, I don't have it here. It's 1 inch wide. Again, if you have a larger dog, go for the 1 inch one. If you have a non-strong pullers or a medium and smaller than medium, get a 3/4 of an inch, because the hardware is different. So the 1 inch, it has a very heavy hardware. I already talked about that. I don't like it personally. And this one has a slightly smaller. Again, this will not work probably for extra small dogs or extra sensitive dogs because it's like somewhat heavy. But the good thing also, it comes in different sizes, colors. I don't know, you can go to town. And again, it's a cheap thing. It's very good to start training your puppy. And especially if you have a puppy, just go order it immediately, because you don't want to unleash your puppy. And usually people sometimes get a little bit excited, thinking that their 5 or 4 months old puppy will come back. And sometimes they don't, and it's very stressful. So always use a long line with them. And since this brand comes in such a variety of lengths for affordable price, imagine you get 50 feet, and you can train recall, so your dog has to come back to you from 15 meters, 50 feet. And in case if they don't come back, you can always reel them in. So great training tool, walking tool as well. The downside of these leashes, again, as I said, they're not super durable. And second, they're a little bit harder to wash because it's a nylon, and they start fraying after 1 year of active use. Something I actually going to mention here. So very often people worry about the leash that is going to rip. but most of them not, unless it's like completely low quality crap. This like the nylon webbing leashes are actually very strong because this material is used for construction. But the concern is actually two concerns. The stitching, because if the stitching is not high quality, it will just rip. So for example, look at this one. It's called a box stitching, when you have a rectangle or a square, and then you have this, crisscross stitching. Also, it has this reinforcement tag. So this is why, like, although it's a cheap no-name product, I still recommend it because the stitching is a good quality. Most of the time, it's not the leash that breaks, it's the buckle. What you can do if you buy a leash like in a pet store or you order online and you have a chance to return it. So what I would suggest, attach this leash to something metal, like something strong, and just do like this. Because if it's gonna start ripping and you hear the ripping, tearing sounds immediately, just return it. Or if it breaks, so better breaks in your hands than with your dog running away. Also, if any of these parts are plastic or like very cheap alloy, it will probably break. Again, if your dog doesn't pull, it's an older dog or it's a small dog that is not a flight risk, that's fine. But if you had any accidents with your dog running away, not coming back to you, always make sure the hardware is good quality. And if you buy some knockoff on Amazon or like no-name brands, it's not going to be that quality. Unfortunately, even some of the big pet stores, I'm not going to name the brands, but there are some stores starting with the P. For example, here in America, and they actually sell expensive but not high quality gear. So I would say stick to the brands who know to produce high quality gear if you want to be secure with your dog. So the next one will be like all-weather leash or like waterproof leash, because I talked a lot about like washing leashes getting dirty. If you use a long line, of course it's going to get dirty. If you live in an area where it rains or it's muddy or you hike in the parks or like forests, of course it's going to get muddy. So you need a waterproof leash. So right now I actually have more than that, but I have two I'm going to show. These are the biotin leashes. So basically, what is a biotin? It's a patented technology. So it's a nylon webbing, the same nylon that I showed you before, but it's coated in this synthetic material that looks like something like latexy, rubbery, or sometimes it's actually more like plasticky. This material is very heavy duty. It's used in construction if it's a real biotin. There are lots of knockoffs that look like biotin, but it's not biotin. But if it's a real biotin, it can withhold any dog. There is more likely that the buckle will break or the carabiner will break or the stitching will fall apart than these things ripping. There are many companies that started producing this like waterproof leashes, but it's just plastic leash without a nylon webbing inside. Again, it's not going to be as heavy duty. There are many brands, especially like small brands who do it. You can find lots of these leashes on Etsy. Just make sure it's real biotin. Biotin leashes that are produced by some companies can be very expensive. For example, there is I think Hightail Hikes company here in San Francisco. So it's a local business if you want to support local business. They produce these custom leashes. They also have also standard leashes. They have long lines. They have lots of stuff. Their products are high quality, but it's obviously an investment because they can range from $50 to $70 and more if you customize it. Like for example, the brand of the long leash I showed you, the Red Line, they also have a biotin leash. So like there are many brands who do them, who specialize in biotin leashes. You can even find sometimes some knockoffs because, for example, I think this leash is like a random knockoff that I was testing out. It was not very expensive and surprisingly, it's lasted me a couple of years, which is like very interesting. So the carabiner looks a little bit beat up, but it's still going strong. The stitching is also very strong and doesn't come apart. You can see it's a very narrow leash, but it's very heavy duty. So this is one thing of the biotin leashes, that you can get a narrow leash that's going to be, less bulky than the thick one. So it's like somewhat compact and it's still very strong. You can technically even use it with the larger dogs. Not like extra large, but like medium to large probably. This is another type of biotin. It's like a flat one. I personally prefer to use these ones to medium dogs and smaller. And these ones I prefer to use with larger dogs because it's just much easier for me to hold in my hand. This one, unfortunately, can get a little bit slippery because it's like very like a sleek surface. This one has a little bit of this grooving, so it helps. So these leashes are easier to wash. They obviously waterproof. So if they get muddy or dirty, you can just rinse them in a bucket and dry and everything is fine. I don't live where it snows, but we do have rains and we also have sometimes like wet grass in the morning, they do. So these leashes are great. I can let the dog drag it. I don't worry about it getting dirty. Sometimes I don't even wash these leashes as often. They just dry out and the dirt gets off. If you walk several dogs a day, you don't have time to wash the leash after every dog. But if you want to wash it, it's easy to do it. Downside of biotin, besides the price, is that it can be heavy actually. So if you order a long line, just make sure you understand what's the weight of this leash, because it can be like up to 1 kilo. So with some dogs, it may not be appropriate because they would not like, let's say if you have 25-foot leash and your dog is dragging it on a wet sand, it can actually be very heavy. I think I had one dog who who didn't realize that the leash is heavy. The dog would just stop and not walk any further because they would think that they reached the end of the leash. It's kind of funny. But again, it's something that dogs can get used to. And also some leashes that I saw, they're like more plasticky, so they're more rigid. Like these ones are very flexible and I like it. Some are more rigid, more plasticky, more glossy, so they're maybe a little bit more slippery in your hand. So ideally, if you can try and touch it, I prefer the one that's like more like a rubbery texture or some grooves on it. But also I have to say one thing, if you guys never used longer lines with your dog, if you always like use a standard leash and you're not quite sure how to start with a long line, or I think in some countries they call it long lead, if you don't know how to do it, I have an article on my website with all the instruction, all the tips, the safety tips, how to choose one, what brands, what materials to consider and stuff like this. So check it out. Maybe in future actually we'll make a video about it, but for now there is a very helpful article on my website if you're reading articles. Okay, the next leash. I guess this leash is more like for specific purposes. I would call it more like a training leash. It's a double pointed leash. So you see we have a handle, we have a leash, and we have 2 carabiners. Some people mistakenly think that this is the leash to walk 2 dogs. This is not. And if you ask me as a behavior specialist, don't walk your 2 dogs on such a short leash together. This is not very good for dogs. I mean, if you need to do it once in a while, it's okay. But on everyday basis, each dog should have their own free range of motion. They should not be bumping into each other. They're not horses in a carriage. They should be able to move freely without other dog dragging them. 2 double connections are very practical with dogs that are reactive, dogs that require a little bit more control. It can be situational. For example, let's say you live in a very quiet area and when you take your dog to like a busy street or like a, I don't know, downtown, and they get like super frantic and activated around crowds. So to have a double leash is very useful for you because you're going to get more control of your dog. And yeah, this leash is short, but you don't need your dog to be on a longer leash because you're in a public place or maybe you're in a store. So the way how it works, you use a harness that has front clip and back clip. So one of the leashes goes to the front clip, another leash goes to the back clip. And this gives you more control over your dog. So if your dog is reactive, if your dog lunges at other dogs, this is a great, you can use it as a training tool for now while you're doing the training, and then eventually you can convert to something else. If your dog in general kind of like likes to pull towards something and you haven't undressed it via training, try something like this. It will give you a little bit more control. There are different companies and brands who offer these setups. This one is a 2-ounce design, double leash, that's the name. And they have different colors, they have different thicknesses. This one is like 1 inch thick, so you can see it's much bigger in my hand. They also have the ones that has a reflective strip, and I would probably suggest those ones. This looks fun, but this nylon is a little bit slippery. Again, if you don't need to grab the leash, if you're just going to use the handle, that's fine. But I actually prefer the ones with the reflective strip. And they also have, I think, 2 sizes. So this one, it's called a standard size, almost like a 4 feet, or so you can see it's short. And then they have the one they call Euro size, It's like around 7 or 8 feet. Sometimes people also use it for safety. Let's say if you're afraid your dog is an escape artist, then you can use a double leash to attach one part to the collar, one part to the harness. This can be used too as well, but I primarily use it just to get better control during the training of reactive dogs. That's why you can even see this thing has a in training. This is not part of the leash. This is something we can talk in future, just a sleep. So technically it's a versatile leash. If you don't need your dog to be close to you, you can just use one attachment. And the second one, you just lock it on this handle, and basically you get a longer leash. In general, it's a small business. They specialize in leashes, collars, and harnesses as well. I'm going to talk about it later. They use a very high quality materials. It has very high quality stitching. So in general, it's a very good brand. Highly recommended. There are two downsides to this. One, I already mentioned, this leash is a little bit slippery. So if you need to grab the leash, sometimes I don't really like because it doesn't give you enough grip, because it's very like a silky, smooth nylon. Second thing I don't like, it's not that I don't like, but it may not be convenient for all the situations. This is a very heavy-duty stainless steel carabiner, which is good, so it's strong, but it's very heavy. So it's one of the heaviest, like out of all the leashes I showed you, this is the heaviest carabiner. Yes, it's a 1 inch wide leash, so it's a leash for the larger dogs, so that's fine. But unfortunately, if you use it for smaller dogs, this will not work. You will have to get I think they have an option, yeah, 5/8 of an inch, so basically 1.5 centimeter leash. So they have two options, but this one, I like the leash. I don't like that the carabiner is so heavy. I wish they would figure out some carabiners that are as strong but less heavy. And last but not least, let's talk about hands-free leashes. So the leashes that you can attach to yourself, or like as crossbody or around your waist. It's a leash that can be converted into different things, and you can attach the other part to your dog and your hands are free. I personally love those leashes, and for dogs who are not pullers, with my own dog, I prefer to use those. I like when my hands are available. And even like when I do training, I actually like to have a hands-free leash, because humans tend to constantly tug on the leash, constantly use the leash to bring the dog to them, to manipulate the dog. And if you put your leash crossbody and you're not touching the leash, you will see much more how you can get actually productive with using your voice to control your dog. Obviously, it's not safe with larger dogs who are pulling or reactive dogs and stuff like this, but if that is not an issue, if it's a smaller dog or medium-sized dogs, this is actually a great tool. There are different leashes that are hands-free. I show you the one I have right now. This leash it's called 𝗕cie pads. So this leash has two connectors, so it can double as a double leash. Also, it's called a convertible leash. So there is this ring where I can attach one of the connectors, adjust this loop, and either I can put it around my waist or I can put it crossbody like this. And then the other connector goes to my dog. And again, it's also adjustable, so I can decide what length I want to give my dog. This leash also has this handle, so you can undo the whole leash and it will become a long line. This one is not bad. It has like a reflective strip for the night walks. It's like lots of convertible parts. I do use it a lot with my clients. Simple, like practical, but boring leash. So the leash I want to talk today about is a leash that is a little bit more like a fashion statement. I like cool stuff in my gear, because you imagine I spend every day with dogs, 6, 8, I don't know, crazy amount of hours with dogs. So I like to have my equipment not just practical, but also cute. Not everyone wants it. So if it's not your piece of cake, don't make fun of me. But actually, the piece of equipment I'm going to talk right now, it's actually very practical. So the name of this equipment is 𝗕cie hands-free leash. I also have harnesses from this brand, and I actually do like how like all the little details are very thought through. It's a very high quality gear, a little bit expensive, but I hope it will last long. I think I was eyeing this leash for like 2 years now, but I was always like, I don't know if I want to spend $50 on a leash. Tried this leash with other clients, and I'm like, you know what? I think I will order one, and maybe in future I can make a review about it. So I have hands-on experience with this leash, just the least amount of experience out of all the leashes I talked today. But all the hardware, all the little like details about this leash are very, at least they seem to be very high quality. Also, they have their own branded hardware. So all the buckles, all the carabiners and stuff, They look very nice, heavy duty, they look very solid, but they actually really put a lot of effort into engineering and designing this. So this leash, it exists in a rope version, and also it exists in a waterproof. It's not a biotin, they use different materials, so that's the one I actually going to order for myself. It's adjustable length, so it can go from 4 feet when your dog is really close to you, let's say you're in a store, to 7.8 feet. In metric, it's like from 1.1 meters to 2.4 meters. And the thickness of the rope, like diameter of a rope, is approximately 1 centimeter or 0.40 inches. So it's a very thick rope, but it's not too heavy. And I actually like leashes, the rope leashes that are thick, because it's like there is less tangling, there is like easier to grab it and stuff like this. So it's a very practical leash and it's very cute. And they even have little trinkets that you can add on a leash. Kind of reminds me of people adding, I don't know how they're actually called, adding those pins to the Crocs. Last but not least, what to do if you have a small dog, like a very small dog, and all these leashes are just too big. And I know people who own like extra small dogs, or like old frail dogs, or people who have like puppies of a very small dogs, or just small dogs. They always struggle to find the leash that is not too heavy, especially some of the leashes that have heavy buckles, as I mentioned, would not work with your dog. In this case, my friends, there are 2 options for you. Options number 1, get a cat leash. When I work with puppies, I usually use the cat leashes, because the cat leashes has a very small carabiners. Obviously, they're not going to be as strong as the bigger ones, but if we deal with a small dog, we don't need the strong carabiner. It usually has a very narrow nylon, and nylon, I think, is the lightest material. So you can check in most like big pet stores, they have a cat leashes section, but sometimes it's not much variety. So literally go and Google cat leashes and get a cat leash for your dog. Or you can make your own leash. For example, this leash, it's a very very narrow, light-weighted long line that I did for some of the puppies I was training. Basically, you go to the store, they either sell hardware, so where you can buy this nylon webbing, or you go to some stores that sell things for crafts, for sewing, supplies and stuff like this. You get this rope, and then you get a carabiner. Okay, this carabiner, not the best option, because this is not a very strong one, but again, I was using with a tiny dog. But you can get a carabiner that is used for either construction purposes or climbing and stuff, like alpinist equipment. So you can go to some store like here in San Francisco, like REI or Sports Basement, get the lightweight carabiner that's heavy duty, attach a safe knot, and that's it. And you have a long line to train your puppy. So sometimes you don't even need to buy anything. Yeah, I guess that's it. I told you a lot. I hope this was useful for you. If it was useful to you, leave something like a dog on a leash emoji. Let's see if you can find that emoji in your keyboard. And let's see each other in the next video. I will be talking about harnesses. The harnesses for every dog, the harnesses specifically for training your dog, the harnesses that are the best for dogs who pull, who get a little bit rowdy, who get a little bit overly excited. Okay, see you in my next video. Anna. Yes, good girl. Hannah, go find it. Hannah, come here. Come here, girlie. Good girl, Hannah. Go get it.